I'm Neil Kenlock. I'm a photographer. The first 20 years of my life, I did photography. And then from there, I went into publishing and then broadcasting. I started Choice FM Radio in London, the first black radio, commercial black radio station. So Alana came to London to visit, and she came and saw my images, and I was talking to her about them. And she said, why don't you go over to Berlin and do the same thing, just talk about your image. So that's why I'm here. So now, I've also been involved in the black struggle in the 60s and 70s. The Black Panther movement was an offshoot of the American Black Panther Party. And I was recruited into that organization, and I was the official photographer for them until their demise in the early 70s. The reason why I got involved with them is because I had an experience when I left school in London. By the way, I got to London, I came to London, arrived in London at when I was 12 in 1963. My parents, like any other West Indian parents, went to Britain to help to reconstruct it back after the war, and also for a better life, because there were no economic gains in Jamaica. So most of the people from the Caribbean went to Britain to, help themselves, to gain economic power and increase their family wealth, and the idea was to return back to the Caribbean and Jamaica. But unfortunately, that dream didn't last. My father went there in 1951 with the intention of coming back in 5 years. He didn't go back until 50 years later. So that's been the story. So when I left school in London, Britain, I went to a nightclub, and they said, oh my God, the place is full, you can't come anymore, come back next week. So, we're talking about 1960s, 67, 68. And I went back the following week, and they said, look, we're not letting you in. This is not a place for you. So I said, well, why? Why can't I go in there? I'm dressed well, I'm well behaved, why can't I go into this club? They say, no, if you don't leave, we're going to call the police. And if you say to a black man, I'm going to call the police, he'd always say, call the police, which I did. And the police came and said, look, they don't want you here, you should go home. So I said, no, I'm not going to leave. He said, look, I'm going to tell you one more time, leave this place, or I'm going to arrest you. And I thought about the crisis in my family home if I was arrested. So I decided to leave. But on my way home, I decided that I'm going to fight against discrimination and for fairness for the rest of my life. So later on, I met the Panther and I joined them. So that's my background. So first of all, let me go to the image. This one, I took this photograph in the late 60s, and what struck me, or what I like about this photograph is that it reminds me of slavery. And it reminds me of what my ancestors went through. I mean, you can't just imagine that, we were taken from Africa for economic gains and was taken to the Caribbean to work, and with no pay. It's an incredible thing that these slaves, people like these, would go to church with the slave master, and both of them will go to heaven. And I can't understand how the slave and his people and the slave master can both go to heaven. What sort of Christianity that will allow both of them to enter the gates of heaven? So let me go to the next slide. I have to close the one there. I'm not used to it. Yeah, this is the young boy, young kid in London in the late 60s, and that's how they would look, you know, with great hope, leaving the Caribbean, you know, finding, you know, trying to be educated, trying to join society, trying to be successful, want to be lawyers and doctors and professionals. This is the female version. This photograph was taken in London to send back home, to show to relative that was left behind what a good life we're living.